Neither Muhammad nor Hitler valued women for anything more than their bodies. Mein Kampf 6:21. The goal of female education is invariably to teach motherhood. Mein Kampf 6:69. The German girl is a subject of the state. In his farewell sermon, the prophet equated women to cattle.
Tabari, Allah permits you to shut them in separate rooms and to beat them, but not severely. If they abstain, they have the right to food and clothing. Treat women well, for they are like domestic animals, and they possess nothing themselves. Allah has made the enjoyment of their bodies lawful in His Koran.
About 10% of America's population was enslaved when Abraham Lincoln became president, and yet he righteously committed the nation to a war that freed them. And what was Rhodesia and the Republic of South Africa? The percentages were different, but so were the conditions. A racial group had their rights infringed. The world protested so vehemently, apartheid was ended. Yet, for 14 centuries, a block of nations stretching from Western Africa across the Middle East and to the doorstep of Asia has treated women as if they were domesticated animals who possess nothing themselves. But rather than free them, we call the nations that hold them in bondage our allies. Rather than speak out against the doctrine that enslaves women, we parade their spokesman on national television. So the question is, have we lost our mind, or only our character? Or have we simply lost sight of our God? Throughout the Islamic world, cleric and king maintain control by feeding the masses a continual diet of poison. Hitler knew all about such things. Mein Kampf 6:23. Loyalty, willingness to sacrifice, and silence are the virtues which a great people urgently need, and their indoctrination by way of education is more important than the things now fulfilled in their curriculum. The people need less knowledge and more self-restraint. And that's because, Mein Kampf 6:34, the folkish state will have to fight for its existence with a fanatical national enthusiasm. Nazism had to manufacture martyrs to survive. The translators of Mein Kampf said, quote, "The leaders of the SS and Hitler Youth organizations have instituted ritualistic exercises derived from a composite Germanic religion. Pagan ceremonies in honor of birth, death, marriage, and other phenomena use Hitler's pictures on altars." Speaking of Qusay and the pagan religious scam Muhammad inherited, Tabari and Ishaq both report,
His authority among the Quraysh was like a religion which the people followed and which could not be infringed. They always acted in accordance with its laws. They regarded it as filled with good omens and recognized his superiority and nobility.
A new religion is easier to sell when it's based upon an old one. A footnote in Mein Kampf reads like the Koran, quote, "Religious instruction degenerated into the exposition of anti-Semitic racial doctrine and apotheosis of the Führer. History is taught in accordance with the spirit of Mein Kampf. German children now recite, 'About thee stand thy people, O my Führer, in kindness and in wrath thou speaketh. Thou art, by God's decree, the voice of the people. In thee do they form and believe. Thou art the law in them. In thee vast planning and pure dreams are made to come true.'" End quote. Bringing everything into focus, Hitler proclaimed on page 650 of Mein Kampf, "Our belief in bringing about a faultless era does not relieve us of the obligation of fighting. This is reminiscent of Muhammad's obligatory fighting to bring an end to the period of ignorance and usher in the Islamic era.
Koran 4, verse 77. When the order for fighting is issued, a party of them feared men as they ought to have feared Allah. They say, Our Lord, why have you ordained fighting for us? And why have you made war compulsory?
Apart from place and time, Muhammad and Hitler, Islam and Nazism, my recital and my struggle are the same. These men created their religions for their own personal benefit. They corrupted everything, making good look bad and bad look good. They spewed hatred for their enemies, Jews and Christians, and they enticed men to fight for their cause to satiate their cravings. It's as simple and as frightening as that. The Mein Kampf translator said, quote, Nazism is not an economic doctrine vis-a-vis communism, capitalism, or fascism, as is commonly thought. Back when the religion was conceived and its gospel, Mein Kampf, was written, Nazis were unfamiliar with fascism. It wasn't until Hermann Göring returned from exile in Italy that they became informed. Hitler refused to be tied to any program of economic or fiscal policy. He was simply fixated on change. It would be some time before the Reichswehr program would be manifest in the doctrines of state control over domestic and export markets, the regimentation of industry, of labor, and capital, its control over the money supply, and its increased government expenditures. End quote. In this regard, Nazism was identical to Islam. Founded as a religious tool to empower a single individual, it failed all others by failing to establish any non-parasitic industry. Economically, Nazi Germany was as bankrupt as the Nation of Islam.